I can't disagree with the thing that the man said. I really can't. And, well, you and I were talking before we started recording, and something that I mentioned in seminars or training camps, or when I had my school to the guys that came to learn, I did 4 classes a week. If you, of course, when I had developmental, we were in the ring at least 6 days a week then. But with the kids that paid to come train with me, we had 4 active classes a week. Now you could come in the gym if you want to come in with somebody, that was better, more advanced than yourself and work out. You're more than welcome to do that. But anyway, I told these kids, I said, I expect you to be at least 3 of these 4, training sessions a week. Uh, and the reason for that is that back when I started in the business, I mean, I was knocking down 2, 3 days a week, as a ranked beginner. But the thing of it is, uh, he mentions the rhythm, and you lose. You know, I've said this on this show before. If you call me at 3 a.m. and call a spot over the phone, I'll run it. It'll be raggedy as hell. It won't look good, but I'll get it in. And why? Because of exactly what we are talking about. You know, uh, the great workers of my era, in part, was because we were doing 5, 6, and as you mentioned, sometimes twice a day on Sunday. And it's hard not to learn if you're working with quality people 5 to 7 nights a week, every week of the year, basically, except maybe you get 10 days to 2 weeks off at Christmas time. Damn, you should know how to do this in your sleep. And I agree with Cody 100%. You try things at house shows where you don't have a TV. Well, you know what? Going back a couple of years, like the AEW was in Troy, Hobart Arena in Troy, Ohio. I'll never forget this because it was only time in my entire 66 years in this wrestling business that I ever saw it. Is these 2 of the girls stopped because they blew a spot and tried it over again. And I lost my mind, if you remember. And but that wouldn't be, you can try something uh, in a house show because it's not going to, the whole world is not going to see it. So you want to try a move you saw somebody else do, here's the time to do it. And you guys can work out timing issues. You can work out matches. You're now one of the things that WWE used to do is, let's say you and I are going to wrestle each other at the upcoming pay-per-view. They would put us in house shows against one another several nights, and to see exactly what well, maybe you guys need to change this, maybe you need to change that. So yeah, there's a multitude of things that house shows are good for, besides generating revenue, is to let your athletes have a chance. Now, yeah, you can go to the PC. If you're WWE, go to the PC and work out. Still not the same. It's just not. And getting your stuff in, trying it in front of a crowd, and actually in a in a stadium full of people, is a lot different than doing it in a gym by yourself. So, yeah, 100%, I agree with Cody. And of course, I know, since the tie-in with TKO and the merger of the 2 companies, this is about the almighty dollar. Yeah, if you can generate 4 to 5 million, for us, we'll come to your town. If you can't, well, maybe not. The point being that the wrestlers need the ring time. They truly do. And that's why one of the reasons I believe we had so many great workers back in the day, because you lived in those wrestling, and the camaraderie is the same. You were traveling together. When I had a steady tag team partner, if we were in 4 matches that week or 5, we were on the road 4 or 5 nights a week together, sometimes sharing a room, that sort of thing. So yeah, there, everything Cody says is a fact, and I agree with him 100%. The house shows are good, especially with the younger guys. they're coming up. They may blow a spot or two on just if they're working Monday and Friday and nothing in between. It's not good. It's just not good for the talent. Maybe fine for the company's wallet, but it's just not good for the talent.
Well, the Undertaker, who was having that conversation with Cody, said, he agreed that more would be better because of the old saying, iron sharpens iron. But at the same time, you don't need to have the kind of grind that, say, Undertaker had in his day. I can remember some famous stories, in fact, of that WWF grind in the 80s and 90s. I mean, some legendary people asked out of that schedule because it was so insane, especially in the 80s as Vince McMahon began to expand. There's a famous story of Jack Briscoe walking off at Newark Airport, on his way to the next town. It was Newark Airport in a snowstorm. He looked at his brother Gerald, who we know very well here on this program and you've known forever, and said, I'm done. Rebooked his travel back to Tampa, went home, and never came back while under contract to the WWF. Yeah. And there's Terry Funk. Remember the story with Terry and his sick horse, as he told Vince McMahon once, I've got to go back to the Double Cross Ranch because my horse is sick. And I think the next time he and Vince ran into each other was like 2 years later. And first thing out of Vince's mouth was, how's your horse?
Yeah. Barry Windham walked too. Barry took a walk. And we're talking about talented. Who we just mentioned here? 2 former world champions and a guy who everybody thought should be a world champion. Every one of them, all 3 of them, talented workers, talented performers, good people. And yet they took a walk. Well, we've talked about when I was offered a spot handling, doing all the promos in all the towns, right? Back when this all started, in 1984, 85. And one of the reasons is they were out there sometimes 7 to 9, 8, 9 times before they ever got to go home. They were on the road that many days in a row. And it's.
I'm glad you brought that up because, we're sitting here like 2 minutes ago talking about how important it is and too bad these guys aren't working every night. And here we are talking about the schedule. But to put a finer point on it, is in the days of the territories when you were working 7 nights a week, don't get me wrong, it was still arduous because you were logging a lot of miles by car, but you were traveling a 2 or 3 state area over the course of those 7 days, as opposed to that WWF schedule of the 80s and 90s where you could literally be in Miami, Los Angeles, Minneapolis on 3 consecutive days, and they would have you doing that for 3 weeks at a time, minimum.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Vince was trying to get the whole world in his pocket, and he wanted to do it before lunch on Monday, right? Or something like that. So, yeah. That wasn't the reason I didn't take the job when it was offered to me. It was due to a family situation. My dad had passed just about 1.5 years before that. And I was living here actually at the time in Knoxville and was making preparations to move home to Cincinnati to help my mother. So, and of course I needed, and Vince says, move her to Stanford. Vince, she knows all our neighbors in Cincinnati because we bought this house in 1962. And she knows nobody in Stanford. And I meant, I could be out there 5 to 9 days and, she's got nobody. So, yeah, that was one of the reasons I didn't take it. It was a great offer. I just, it was a family thing. But, yeah, Cody's spot on. He's right, and the people at TKO may have to cough up $1 million or $500,000 here or there, so to let these guys have what they actually need. And what Cody is saying, I agree 100%. I do.
Well, because I don't think they'll cough up that $1 million or $500,000 or $2 million or whatever it would cost. Here's my hope, given what we have seen, at least so far, under this current ownership structure. They do these tours. Anytime they go overseas now, you can bet that there's going to be a house show tour. And it makes sense because they have been there over the years so infrequently that there's no question they're going to do good business while they're doing that. But like everything else, and the same thing that they claimed in the States when they pulled back the house shows last year, well, we've been to some of these places a little too much. We're not making the kind of money we should. At some point, the frequency with which they travel overseas is going to impact that house show business when they go over there to do television as well. And maybe after a couple of years of being away from the States as a regular house show touring business, for a little while at least, in order to let that European market regenerate its interest, they could start sneaking in a weekend or 2 weekends per month of house shows in the bigger markets here in America that have now not seen the product on a regular basis outside of PLEs, and make some more money back in America with house shows.
I would agree 100%. Now,